Hey everybody, this is Mike. Today is August 27th, 2020, and today, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be strange. This one almost feels like it's the last one, at least of like the pointing out of, the behind the scenes, because like once you know it's there, there's really no reason to keep looking. In fact, as I think what we're going to see tonight is like that's part of it, part of like the part of the cleverness of what we're finding ourselves in is all that matters is that you're watching it. It doesn't matter if you know what's going on. In fact, it's almost like, that's how clever it is because it's like now that you can't look away. And, it's getting to the point where, enough's enough. So let's start. You'll see what I'm saying a little bit later. So today we're going to Hijacking Reality, Part 5, the Rockefellers, Doctor Who, and the World Health Organization. And, if you've been watching a lot of my presentations, hopefully you're coming to this realization that we are in this web, we're in this highly connected dream state where what we perceive as reality, what we take as reality, is being manipulated and it's being flipped back on us. And it's the last video I made, I think, sums it up the best, and I've talked about this many times. This is Sun Tzu, Art of War. Like there is a full spectrum attack on the human family, and no one knows, the majority of us, human family, the members of it, don't realize that there's a war being waged upon you and or upon us, and it's unclear as to who is the person behind it, the persons behind it. We keep on coming back to the name the Rockefellers, and like, yeah, what are the Rockefellers? Are they a front for the Rothschilds? And who are the Rothschilds a front for? Are they front for the nine, interdimensional? I don't know. All I know is that they've created this thing which is in us, which is very anti-human and anti-life, and now's the time to start moving off. So if there's ever been any doubt of what we're working with, you're going to see it now. So let's just jump right in. We're going to start with the World Health Organization. Usually when people think about the World Health Organization, it's a real big thing right now. We know it's all corrupt. Like, probably your typical person on the street's going to know they're corrupt. The person who knows who they are but doesn't know they're corrupt, they're like 7-8 levels behind. But the World Health Organization, it's a specialized agency of the United Nations. Ding, 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 ding. 1948. But as we see with all things, the Rockefellers are behind it. And so even right here, like, the United Nations, they're headquartered in New York City. The land which they're on was given to them by the Rockefellers. Previously, that land was used as a slaughterhouse. Take that into consideration, but it goes deeper than that. We're going to go into some really, really weird stuff. I'm telling you right now, we're going to get into the weird stuff, and it's going to be kind of funny. Like, it is going to be funny. Like, there's something like humorous about the macabre nature of it. Maybe, maybe there's a level where like that's all part of it. Like, us waking up to the ridiculousness of it. But nonetheless, it's macabre, it's going to be funny, it's strange and unexplainable. But we're going to start with the things which are very tangible, as I always try to do. So we got the World Health Organization, Rockefellers. But the World Health Organization, it really is the second iteration of this thing, which was known as the International Health Division of the Rockefeller Foundation. You could see like the name keeps on changing, you know, from International Health Board to the Health Commission to the Health Division. Started around 1913, looks like, 1913, yeah, that's where it began. And before that, it was the Rockefeller Sanitary Commission. You know, it just keeps on changing names. It says right here, the World Health Organization was seen as the successor to the Health Division. So basically what happened was this went under, they stopped funding it, and then the World Health Organization stepped in. It appears to be like everything is done with, like, you know, by proxy. You don't know who's running the show because there's like a new proxy, there's a new proxy, there's a new shell for it. So the World Health Organization, it came out in 1948, and then it was subsumed by the larger or IHD, the International Health Division, was just kind of like melted into the Rockefeller Foundation in 1951, and then discontinuing its overseas work. They just stopped doing anything because why? They all went into the World Health Organization. They did it as part of the UN, whereas the UN's in the land given to them by the Rockefeller Foundation. You know, this is just like this is how our world works. CFR. You know, it's all goes back to these folks. So here's like a list of a bunch of names here, like who are associated with this International Health Division. I just clicked on one of them before putting this presentation together. Cornelius Rhodes. I picked up him. I never heard of him before. I don't know who this dude is. But, you know, right away, what do we see? Like, you know, this is Wikipedia. This guy's like unethical human experimentation. Like, that's where this is all coming from. And then he's the first director of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, you know, like the epitome of mainstream cancer research. Like, that's the level of humor, like of this macabre humor. And we're going to see it, much later, but it's going to make perfect sense to you why, or it's going to be more evident, I suppose, like the humor and why humor is part of this. But nonetheless, this guy here, he worked for the United States Army helping develop chemical weapons, you know. It's like, what about do no harm? You know, what about those sort of like doctor, they don't even list him as a doctor, a pathologist and an oncologist. So maybe he never took any sort of, is it the Hippocratic Oath, the hypocritical oath? I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. So this is where it all begins. And you know, let's get a little bit more tangible about it. Here's something that was written, Royal Society for Public Health, 2013, Backstage, the relationship between the Rockefeller Foundation and the World Health Organization, Part 1, the 40s through the 60s, you know. The Rockefeller Foundation, the unparalleled 20th century philanthropy heavyweight, both profoundly shaped the World Health Organization and maintained long and complex relationships with it. And even as both institutes changed over time, I don't think they changed. Like, it's when the people who are in control they started this. These are 400-year plans. These are 100-year plans. Maybe it appears to be changing. Maybe it appears to be like, you know, there's infighting between the World Health Organization and the Rockefeller Foundation, but at the very least, it's like Coke and Pepsi. Like, yeah, they're competitors, but at the end of the day, they're poisoning the entire world with the same sort of shit. So, right here, top contributors, this is the World Health Organization, 2018, we see first the United States. Next is Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. If you haven't seen this, I made this video, when did I make this? April 3rd. I really go into the connection between the Rockefellers and Bill Gates and all this sort of stuff. So I don't want to repeat any of that, but there's a lot of strangeness. The most important thing is the Rockefeller Foundation was developed by a guy named Frederick Gates. You know, there's supposedly no biological connection between the guys, but as we're going to see, like, whether it's like a joke with the names or whether it's something like stranger, I don't know. But the likelihood of like the richest monopolists of the world, and then of this time period, and then this guy becomes the richest monopolist of the world, and they have this like name. I mean, it's we may not know the mechanism. We don't need to know the mechanism. This is part of the look away. Like, once you know, you know. But anyway, so we got that right there. We know all this sort of stuff. And all I'm trying to show is, like, we've got the World Health Organization, and they're a bunch of doctors. And we're going to go, let's go look at this before we go into that. So it's like, here's the Rockefeller Foundation, and what are they talking about? Like, the whole sort of virus right now. And they're saying, we want to go to, our good buddies who we're intimately connected to. And we've got the plan for it, our national tracing action plan, the solutions group, and this is what we do with the economy. Like, this is, everyone knows, like, this is, they're connected. I'm telling you, like, what you already know. This is like the preface, if anything, to get us into the next stage, which is Doctor Who. And we're going to begin with this, and just like, this is how it works. It's kind of like fun, like tongue-in-cheek, laughing at you. Like, the World Health Organization, they're doctors, or at least supposedly doctors. We know the leader or the head of it right now isn't a doctor. A lot of the administrators are not medical doctors, but that really doesn't matter, as we saw with Fauci. But let's go into here, and we're going to see some really, really, really interesting stuff. So let's begin with Doctor Who. So I've never seen Doctor Who before. I knew that it existed. I'm not really interested in Doctor Who. I'm going to talk about some episodes in here. There's probably a whole bunch of stuff buried into Doctor Who, some truths, I don't care. I don't want to look at this stuff. I recommend, not getting sucked into it, particularly if you're a fan. That's part of it. Like, whether your fandom is with a show or whether your fandom is with, like, a sports team, like, that's how they hook you. They hook you into that. So what is Doctor Who? So if you're like me and you don't know what Doctor Who is, Doctor Who was this British science fiction, this British TV show, science fiction, and it's about, like, this guy who's the doctor. He's a time lord. So right away we know embedded into it is, like, El Saturn, Lord is El and time is Saturn. That's buried into it. And he's an extraterrestrial, and he travels. He's a time traveler. And we're going to see throughout this, as this gets weird, there's, like, all of this time travel stuff, are they time travelers? I don't know. Maybe. Are they making fun of us? Most definitely that. Are they telling us stuff? Yeah, there's a telling, but this is part of, like, why the magnetism to keep coming back to it, so you can go and learn more. I'm as guilty of it as anyone else. It's like, I get sucked into this stuff as well, but we're coming to the point where we got to look away. The real solution, I'll come back to this again, is that the climax of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indy's been spending his entire life, like, trying to get to the Lost Ark, and he finally gets it, and they're going to open it up. And what does he tell? Well, I don't even remember her name. What's her name who's with him? But he's like, don't look. Don't look. Don't look. And they were able to pass through it. So there's truth in some of this stuff, and, like, we got to be smart, but nonetheless, we go back to that Doctor Who. Started in 63, it ran to 89, they did a movie in 96, and then they kicked it off again in 2005, March 26, 2005, okay? The first Doctor Who, it was timed to the assassination of JFK. Time-space stuff. I was going to also include in this, there's a really interesting correlation between Q and QAnon, Q being the character from James Bond, but I'm not even going to get into that, but just know that, there is. But, we've got the QAnon story, and, like, one of the avenues tied to that has to do with JFK, or more so with JFK Jr. But nonetheless, Doctor Who has had an enormous impact on the collective consciousness, primarily the British consciousness, but it does have a cult following. Doctor Who said to be one of the small number of super brands of BBC worldwide, which, we're dealing with Tavistock sort of stuff. So major influencers of worldwide Western globalist sort of, like, consciousness. So let's go a little bit deeper here. So Eric Mashwitz, 1901 to 1969, sometimes called Holt Marvel. You know, he was an entertainer, he was a writer, he was an editor, he's a broadcaster, and he was a broadcasting executive. The reason why we're interested in him is because he's the guy who brought Doctor Who to life. It was under his watch. He's not exactly credited with being the creative director, but my guess is, by looking at this guy, he probably definitely had his hands all over it. But this is the avenue we're going to go down. So let's go look at this guy. And this is just like Wikipedia. You know, they're telling us this in Wikipedia. In 1939, he joined the Secret Intelligence Services. So this is all during like World War II stuff. 1940, he briefly worked to establish the resistance organization, blah, 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 Army welfare in London. And then he was assigned to the Special Operations Executive. And now this is where we're going. In 1940, he was commissioned to the Intelligence Corps, and then he was sent to New York City to work with the British Security Coordination. And this is what we're watching. So Doctor Who is a British, as I'm going to go and demonstrate, it is a British security coordination project. There's a truism, I guess, within spycraft. You know, once a spy, always a spy, and this guy is a real deal spy. So he went to go work with the British Security Coordination. In 1942, he returned to London, and then he started supervising radio programs for the troops. He was transferred to the political warfare executive, and then he was the chief broadcasting officer. Leaving the Army as lieutenant colonel. They were responsible for taking over Reichsendire, Hamburg in 1945. So this is right. I don't know when Victory in Europe Day was. I think that was before that. Obviously, if they're taking over that. This requisition enabled the British occupation troops. Yeah, so this was after the Nazis were Germany was taken over by the British and the U.S. soldiers. But what we see is Mashwitz, he eventually becomes the British Forces Broadcasting Services. So what I'm trying to indicate or trying to show right here is like this guy is trained as a spy and specifically as it relates for programming. And all of this is propaganda. And what is the purpose of all of this is creating the consciousness, a worldview of reality. And we're going to go and see, we're going to get really deep in this. And this is fascinating stuff. But we also want to see, so in 1947, he goes from this job to becoming the chairman of the Songwriters Guild of Great Britain. So he's very, very instrumental within British popular music. Like this guy was like, you know, the chief executor of like how things happen. And, you know, I'm just going to throw this off, you know, as a slight side. I don't want to go too deep down it, but this is how it's all connected. It's JFK assassination happened in November of '63, and that was an emotional smack to definitely to the American audience, but probably to a lot of like the Western consciousness, and people were reeling with it. You know, that was a big shock. And then the salve to it was, you know, the introduction of the Beatles. The Beatlemania hit the United States in February of '63. So November of '62 was the assassination. Then February '63 was when we see the Beatlemania. And so we can see this. It's all linked. It's all part of how it's rolled out. So okay. So Mashwitz. So we see Mashwitz. We talked about the British, the BSC. This is where we want to go, and this is where we find gold. We see this guy as a connection. Once a spy, always a spy. So we're going into the British Security Coordination. So who is the British Security Coordination? It was a covert organization set up in New York City by the British Secret Service, MI6, in May 1940. Its purpose was to investigate enemy activities, prevent sabotage against British interests, and mobilize pro-British opinion in the Americas. As a huge secret agency of nationwide news manipulation and black propaganda, the BSC influenced news coverage in the Herald Tribune, the New York Post, the Baltimore Sun, Radio New York Worldwide. Its stories disseminated from Rockefeller Center. The stories disseminated from Rockefeller Center and would then be legitimately picked up by other radio stations and newspapers before being relayed to the American public. Through this, anti-German stories were placed into the American media outlets. Its cover was the British Passport Control Office, and it benefited from the support given by the Office of the OSS, William Donovan, and FDR. So William Donovan, the OSS, that's the predecessor to the CIA. He was the head of it. Like, this is like embedded at the deepest level, like at the highest level, at the deepest level. It was brought in here. And as we're going to go see, the British Security Coordination, they, we'd hear all this like fake news. They're the guys who's coming up with all these fake news sort of stuff. And what they're trying to do is create a certain understanding of reality. There are a couple things we're going to look at from these guys, but what we want to realize is what they were about was getting us in the fight. They're like, you're coming in this fight. We're going to get you in this fight. We're going to get you in this fight. And if you're paying attention to what's happening right now, is like there's so much emotionality and so much propaganda which is happening. Same thing, there's same trick. And it is getting people into the fight. One way or the other, you're going to have no choice. We're bringing you into the fight. This is why you got to look away and detach, because they're going to pull you into the fight. And that's all they want. That's all they want. So let's go a little bit deeper into this. All right, so this is about Donovan. So this is a little bit CIA sort of stuff. So Donovan was the head of the OSS. The OSS becomes the CIA. And we see Donovan, the soldier spy, was a principal humanitarian as early as 1915, before America's entry into World War I. He traveled to wartime Poland as part of the Rockefeller Foundation's commission to speed food. This is the same time period as this, as the International Health Division, 1913. We see that all throughout Europe, the Rockefeller Sanitary Commission is there. It's the same folks, my friends. We covered that. We see right here, this is what I like this. This is something else to talk about Donovan. Donovan, the future spy master, was also a former seminary student, and a complex intellectual whose knowledge of the war was not limited to what he read in the newspaper. As a member of the Rockefeller Foundation, he was in Belgium. So we know he's in Poland, now we know he's in Belgium. In 1916, delivering relief in the form of food and blankets. That sounds like sanitary stuff. And also observing, just checking shit out, just like observing. But just in case if there's any sort of question of what we're talking about, here's a really interesting article right here, or story, or study, excuse me. Journal article, Nelson Rockefeller and the British Security Coordination. Who are we talking about again? Yeah, the British Security Coordination. Nelson Rockefeller, this here is Sage Publications. When does this come out? 1981. Let's read from this abstract what they say right here. American intelligence experts, as well as writers on the subject, have remained totally in the dark as to the work of the Rockefeller office in the intelligence field. Those who knew, for reasons we shall examine later, remained silent, and those who didn't know, but who were experienced in other areas, preferred to describe themselves as the pioneers in the field. So it's So we're looking at Rockefeller no matter what. We're going to return back to Doctor Who in a bit, but we're going to go down this path, and where we're going to go is just friggin' nutty. Where are we? All right. So now we go here. Let me click out of this. BSC was not just propaganda. BSC was not just propaganda. They also had this thing called Hydra. And you're going to understand why I'm getting into Hydra in a moment. But so Hydra was a highly sophisticated telecommunications relay station. It was established in May 42. So this is the same time which we know our boy Mashwitz. Where do we see that? We see like in 42 he returns to London. So like at the same time, that's when Hydra goes live. And what Hydra does is Hydra is up in Camp X, up in Lake Ontario in Canada. And they were like relaying information. So let's see some of this stuff. It was through BSC and that the British acquired the powerful transmitter that was used for propaganda by the political warfare executive. Remember, we saw that's where Mashwitz was. BBC overseas broadcast, all the same guys. We see it's all connected. BSC transmitter, blah, blah, blah. Oh, so right here. BSC also sourced a transmitter for it to communicate with the UK, which was operated under the code name Hydra. So this from a different article. Let's talk about it. Author's note: the codename Hydra was given to the wireless installation because it was a mythical beast of the same name, a many-headed, triple diversity creature which would communicate continuously during the war years with England's Aspistidra. My own inability to enunciate is becoming evident. This is interesting. Let's see if I remember to come back to this later. But so what they did was they used the Hydra used this transmitter. Most of the big transmitter complex was jerry-built. Parts came from everywhere. One transmitter had been a 10,000 watt, came from a 10,000 watt station in Philadelphia, WCAU, and that's a whole nother wormhole. But what I thought was interesting was how that kind of correlates with like the Philadelphia experiment and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like it all connects. That's the whole thing when I'm saying once you see it connects, you see it all connects. It all connects. If you're going to go and scratch, you're going to see it all connects. It all connects. And part of like the insidious plan is like you want to go and look deeper. This is where I get guilty of that. Like I want to keep going down and down and down and look, it's connected here and there. And there has to be a discipline to walk away. But I'm pointing that out to you guys. We've got this Philly connection, but let's keep going. So these are, and I'm going somewhere with this. This is going to go back to more than Doctor Who in a way, which is just going to be phenomenal, mind-blowing. So these are all notable employees of the BSC. So we got Roald Dahl. That's the guy behind Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That guy's got all of his stuff is highly, highly questionable. Like, particularly as it relates to programming and stuff like that. Ian Fleming, 007, James Bond. We're going to come to that a little bit. Here's our boy Eric Mashwitz. David Ogilvy, applied Gallup audience research techniques. This guy's known as the father of advertising. It's like all of these people, I don't even know who half the people that those are the only ones who I know by name, but I'm pretty certain the list probably goes much, much deeper of those who went on to be major influencers of life post World War II. And they're all connected. They're all part of this spy network. All right. So I've been leading this up to who's been running the show? Who's in charge of BSC? Good question, Mike. Sir William Samuel Stevenson. He was a Canadian soldier, airman, businessman, inventor, spy master, and senior representative of the British Security Coordination. He's best known by his wartime intelligence code name Intrepid. We're going to come back to that plenty in a bit. Many people consider him to be one of the real-life inspirations for James Bond. Ian Fleming once wrote, "James Bond is highly romanticized version of a true spy. The real thing is Stevenson." Remember, Stevenson was these guys' boss, okay? Right here, as the head of the British Security Coordination, Stevenson handed over British scientific secrets to FDR and relayed the American secrets to Churchill. In addition, Stevenson has been credited with changing American public opinion from an isolation stance to a supportive tendency regarding America's entry in World War II. You know, so this was milked. Let's go right here. We've got Camp X. So look right here, Camp X. It was established December 6, 1941. What happened the very next day was this was Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. That was what the final linchpin that brought in the American public into World War II. You know, I'm not talking about World War II. I'm not talking about anything other than the fact that this is how the American public was brought into it. It was all of the propaganda work and fake news done by the BSC, coupled with then the event of Pearl Harbor, and then Camp X opens up the next or the day before. And remember, like the day of and the day before correlating with JFK. We're going to begin to see how this connects a little bit more so. So what is this one? I think, why did I put this out here? I want to pull this out right here. Stevenson worked in New York on the 34th and 35th floor of the International Building, the Rockefeller Center. Of course he did, because Nelson Rockefeller makes this shit happen, okay? A few thousand worked under him, but few knew his name, let alone his face. We're going to see his face in a little bit of it. Oh, and that's going to be so good. But this is what I want to get. His mission in the States was twofold. He was Churchill's secret intelligence ambassador, to President Roosevelt, who, no thanks to Joseph Kennedy in London. So there's this kind of like, there's like a jab at the Kennedy. There's already like a jab going towards Kennedy's. And we know that this, and you're going to see a little bit later. Do we have in these slides? No, I'll see it later. That this guy was like really, really close with Donovan, CIA. Like these guys are connected. But anyway, so let's keep going. I want to talk a little bit more about the Stevenson guy and like what they're saying to him. In 1946, General Wild Bill Donovan, the guy we're talking about, who was the head of the OSS, which became the CIA, he presented a medal to Stevenson and said that he was a valuable assistance in the fields of intelligence and special operations. Wow, that sounds really exciting, right? Real emotion there. But here we get a little bit more emotion. We've got, in 2002, CIA executive director representing George Tennant accepted from the Intrepid Society of Winnipeg. Remember, the guy's name is Intrepid. This bronze statuette of Stevenson, and this is what Carey said. He said, William Stevenson played a key role in the creation of the CIA. He realized early on that America needed a strong intelligence organization and lobbied contacts close to President Roosevelt to appoint the U.S. coordinator to oversee FBI and military intelligence. He urged that the job would be given to Wild Bill Donovan, who recently toured British defenses and gained the confidence of Prime Minister Churchill. Although Roosevelt did not establish exactly what Sir William had in mind, the organization created represented a revolutionary step in the history of American intelligence. Donovan's Office of Strategic Service was the first central U.S. intelligence service. The OSS worked closely with and learned from Sir William and the other Canadian and British officials. A little later, the OSS officers formed the core of the CIA. Intrepid may not have technically been the father of the CIA, but he's certainly in our lineage. Like, that's it. This is all connected. This is all the same folks, and these are all Rockefeller folks, okay? So, let me go into this before, before the big reveal. I'm leading up to something. If you can't tell, I'm leading up somewhere. This is talking about Donovan, and it's talking specifically about Donovan's liking of the art of war. And then also we see here in 1918, Sir William Stevenson, who had become known as the famous spy Intrepid in World War II, indicated in his own autobiography, A Man Called Intrepid, that he met Donovan in early World War I. So we know this is all Rockefeller. Remember, we know that Donovan was in Europe on the Rockefeller Foundation. So it's like they're telling us it's all connected. It's all webbed out. They're all the same folks. So, okay. You're going to think I'm nuts. But wait till you see this. I mean, because this is nuts. No matter what the explanation is of what I'm about to show you, it's friggin' nuts. And whether it's like, I'm just going to show you. Okay. So here's our picture of William Samuel Stevenson. Remember they said like no one knew his face. Thousands of people worked for him. Look, this is where he died. He died in GoldenEye Estates. It's hopefully you recognize who this guy is by now. But if not, let me go and show you. Look at this guy. Surely, Mike. Yeah, they look alike. But what? You're telling me that these are the same two people? I don't know. But wait till you see what I'm about to say. Undoubtedly, there is a similarity which is unfriggin' canny. Down to this droopy eye and this smirk. Like, all right. So, yeah, maybe they just look alike. But just, hold on. I haven't led you astray yet. So come on. So let's see where we're going to go. So the first thing I want to say is, the very nature of, so I'm just assuming everyone knows who this is. This is Piers Morgan. Most Americans, if you know who Piers Morgan is, you probably were introduced to him in 2007 when he was on Donald Trump's Celebrity Apprentice and he won it. If you are British, well, you know who he is. He's a very popular personality in Britain. And so we see right here how Piers Morgan became the most divisive man in British media. Good Morning Britain host has spent decades cultivating the persona that makes him a one-man clickbait machine. If you don't understand that that is exactly what this kind of like this ability to affect public perception, one way or the other, this is someone who is affecting public perception. So I'm just going to say right here. So like, okay, this guy, they look a lot alike, and yeah, they both connect public perception, or they both impact that. So let's go here, because this is now we're going deeper and deeper. So this was his Intrepid's this guy's autobiography. He was said to have died in 1989. This is his autobiography, right? Came out in, I don't know when it came out. It says Illustrated. I don't know when it originally came out. This is 2009. But that's what he's titling his own autobiography, Man Called Intrepid. So what does intrepid mean? So intrepid means, well, first right here, I hope you saw the previous video. To really appreciate where we're going to go with this, you had to have seen the hijacking #4 and all the London Olympics and all the Virginia Dare stuff. So intrepid, daring is another synonym for intrepid, Virginia Dare. And we also know this guy is a resonator with 007, the 007, at least the fictitious the fiction-oriented 007. Not the John D. 007. Maybe they're one and the same. Who knows? Stuff's getting weird. But the word intrepid means fearless, adventurous, often used for rhetorical or humorous effect. There's a humorous nature. This guy's telling us. He's like, I'm intrepid. There's stuff I'm doing. I'm mocking. I'm being funny. If you're paying attention, there's humor in everything I do. Okay? So when we begin to see all of this like wink, wink, nod, nod, and we're seeing these Easter eggs that are apparently left for us, and they're like, wow, are they laughing at us? They're like, yeah, it's for humorous effect. You know, you got to decide whether they're, you know, is this a dangerous universe or is this a friendly universe? But make no mistake, you know, this Intrepid guy, all the clues which they're telling us, and we're going to get to the clues, I haven't shown them to you yet, they're being funny. So let's go and see the clues, which I'm talking about. So, Celebrity Apprentice. This is it. Donald Trump, you know. Who's the, from season number 7, was the first time they introduced this concept of celebrity apprentices. All of the members of this TV show, I'm assuming you know what the reality show, The Apprentice is, but it's, you know, they compete, they do these things, and you know, someone gets voted off, and this concept, this character of Donald Trump was sold to the American public. And in the first time they did Celebrity Apprentice, meaning like they weren't like just regular actors, these were celebrity actors, Piers Morgan wins it, and this is when he becomes really introduced to the American public. And he's introduced in this way, very influential. He's the one who wins it. So we could see here, so if you're a celebrity, you didn't get any money. What you got is like, you know, you raised money which went to a charity of your choice. And so what's the name of his charity? His charity is the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. Intrepid. Intrepid is not a common word. It is Intrepid. So that, you know, the guy who looks like Intrepid, whose code name is Intrepid, he goes on the show and he goes and he donates his money to Intrepid, right? You know, this is, you know, read this. And here's another thing right here. OJ's, that's the theme song. Money, you know, if you know the show, it begins money, money, money. The OJ's are a Philadelphia soul group, and their music is being played on WCAU. What was WCAU? It was the radio station which gave BCS, where do we got this up here? It was what gave BCS, let's see where I have it up here. But it's what gave BCS their antenna so that they could, there we go. All right. So we see right here, so it's Philadelphia, WCAU gave the antenna so Hydra could be created, right? And so we go back down here and we see that, oh yeah, the theme song to this is by the OJs and Money, Money, Money. And that is currently being used on WCAU's, programming. And when we go and we see the name of the team, so this is how Celebrity Apprentice work, is like, you know, they had these teams competing against each other. What was the name of Piers Morgan's team? It's Hydra. You know, they're doing this for humorous effect. They're laughing at us. This guy then goes to become the president of the United States during this particular time. You know, they call this in spycraft, they call this like a handler. That's who this guy is. This guy's the handler's handler. Or at least they're telling us that story. You know, I don't know. This is where you get to decide what this is. You know, this is where it gets even weirder because this all ties back in. This all ties back into Doctor Who, right? Because this all goes back into Eric Mashwitz, who is the guy who creates Doctor Who, who's all about time travel. And if we really want to get wild with this, right? You know, if you know your Mandela stories, which they're telling us that it was Trump's uncle who was the receiver of Tesla's work on time travel, And then, you know, you get all these Donald Trump, Baron Trump stories from the 1800s, and they're planting all of this stuff out there. The only reason we know about, if you know what I'm talking about Baron Trump and these books that were written in the 1800s, which seemingly are this Mandela effect, sort of like predictors of Baron Trump, we only know it from Wikipedia. You know, I'm using this from Wikipedia. This is their tool they're giving us, you know. Who knows if it's real? Who knows if it's not real? All I know is they're all connected. As one of the heads of the CIA said, they will have done their job correctly when no one knows what's true and what's false. So let's go to this last thing right here. So look, this is what? 007, always known for this silhouette, you know, right here. We've got right here, The Apprentice. You know, we've got this silhouette, black and white. It's playing the same thing. You know, this is the Intrepid. Are they laughing at us? Are you in on the joke? Am I in on the joke? Are they telling us stuff? I don't know. But this is the strange world which we are finding ourselves in. All right. Phew. 45 minutes. Now we're going on to part 3. Only got a handful of slides. All right, so I saw this was going on, and I was like, all right, I got to go see something about Doctor Who. And, you know, I can't really, everything I talk about, I try, particularly in these presentations, I try to give as much like, you know, this is where it's coming from, you know, like, the objectivity to it, you know, it's coming from the internet, like, which should be questioned immediately, but at least we can say this is where it's coming from. They've at least left these clues to be discovered. I try not to give my own personal stories, but I'm going to give my own personal stories. So just as I was doing all this stuff, I had a really, really vivid dream. I had a weird as fuck dream. And, I dreamt that I was in John Dee's castle. I was in his castle. I've never dreamt anything like that. And I was in this room. It was a circular room, and I knew how to get into it. I get into it, and I find myself with this scroll. This is in the dream. It's all going to tie back in, but you know, and I'm looking at it. It's got symbols, and in the dream I see that it says rose. That's what I remember. And as soon as I say the word rose, the candles blow out in the castle. It gets really dark, and I freak out in the dream. And I wake myself up, I suppose. Like I awake, and I find myself in the bed, you know, my physical body, sleeping. And I know who I am, but I didn't know where I was. And I knew that I will come back to where I'm supposed to be. I knew that I would remember. And I remember thinking, if I lift up my head and look around, I'd be able to realize where I was. But I didn't want to. I wanted to like sit in that middle space until like it came back to me where I was. So this is right in the middle of me doing all of the research, which I'm presenting to you. Like this was last week. And so Rose. So I want to go and see at least look into some of these Doctor Who episodes. I'm going to watch a Doctor Who. There's like, I'm not going to go and watch them all. Like, I know this is like a psyop of some sorts, but which one am I going to watch? What am I going to go watch? Well, sure enough, my friends, you know, right? Doctor Who, it runs from 63 to 89, and then they start up again in 2005, and the first episode, the very first one to come back, it's called Friggin' Rose. And so when I just had the dream, this is the one show I go and I watch. And it was a doozy. You know, for whatever happens, are they beaming stuff into my brain? I don't know. Am I dreaming this? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know. Like, the stuff's getting weird. But nonetheless, so Rose is the first episode. I have the dream Rose. I talk about Rosicrucians a lot. And I'm like, this is the episode I gotta go see. And so the show's horrible. It was friggin' horrible. Like, I couldn't believe how bad it was. But nonetheless, I watched the whole thing, and the plot, though, was very interesting, for a lot of different reasons. So the plot of this particular story was like, Doctor Who shows up and in London in contemporary times, and I guess there's like this reoccurring theme, and there are these bad guys. They're called the Nestine consciousness. It's this hive mind, evil, multi-dimensional, extraterrestrial sort of bad guy, and they are able through a transmitter to bring plastics alive, and plastics are to take over humanity and kill all the humans. And it turns out that the transmitter is the London Eye, this big London Ferris wheel. And, there's 1,000 things right there. So first thing is like the way they described it, and this is like, this came out in 2005, like I'm just thinking 5G and the Internet of Things. They use the word plastic. It's bringing plastic to life. And, realistically, like, plastic it's a byproduct of, plastic is a byproduct of petroleum. And petroleum, the entire petroleum, industry, at least at one point when it really came out, like was powerful in the 1880s, that was all like, that was where Rockefeller first had their first monopoly with Standard Oil. So it's like plastic does like tie directly into Rockefeller in a certain way. And like London Eye, you could go down all of the different sort of things of like what the London Eye is, and like, the symbolism and Illuminati stuff. And yeah, that's true. And this is a picture. This is what they showed. They showed it like transmitting this stuff right here. But where I want to go with this, and like I hadn't seen this, I didn't know about any of this, and this is coming right off of, and you really got to go see that, rewatch the London Games show, which are Hijacking Reality #4. But this ties right into the London Games for a variety of reasons. It's right in the same place as Leicester Square. I got a bunch of like people who told me it's pronounced Leicester. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But anyway, so let's go look at this because this is friggin' nuts. So we talked about the London Olympics. They're telling us in this video, in this Rose video, that the bad guys are using this to transmit a signal through the lights to go and control all of the anti-human plastics. And Doctor Who kills them, with an anti-plastic. Sounds very like an anti-venom or something, But nonetheless, let's go down here. So 2012 Olympics, Ferris wheel is a big deal because what they did during it, this is what they did was Twitter, working with this group of MIT engineers called Energy of the Nation was their project. They this, what do they call it? It was the group is called So Limited, and it's made up by a bunch of like graduates from MIT. And they wrote this algorithm that linguistically analyzed tweets about the games, and then they create this light response. So the algorithm we develop converts real-time social emotions into color and motion, and tweets a light show. We distill 24 hours of actions into 24 minutes. So at the very least, what we see is happening is like in this time of like the opening game ceremony, that there is a direct correlation between emotions, between lights, between technology, between the games, between humanity, whatever this is, whatever this could be doing, whether it's anything, this is lining up. I mean, this is really sort of happening, So let's go a little bit deeper. So it's, remember the Hydra. The Hydra was the wireless, it was a sophisticated telecommunications relay station. This is a sophisticated telecommunications relay station. This is all the same folks. This is the same. Nothing has changed. They're the same people. And they're intrepid. They do all of this dangerous secret stuff with a sense of humor. So here's the Hydra. Look, this is the body of the Nestine. I found this of some Doctor Who fandom sort of place. It looks just like this Hydra right here. This is a drawing of Rockefeller over the earth. Here's the multi-headed Hydra, the Nestine consciousness. Here it is. He has a viral of anti-plastic that can be used to destroy the Nestine consciousness if necessary, realizing that the transmitter is the London Eye. Rose and the Doctor descend underneath to stop the Nestine consciousness. Here's the Nestine consciousness. It's Rockefeller. It's the Hydra. It's the same friggin' thing, and it's fallen, you know, right on this time period of the London Games. And I went in, if you haven't seen it, go re-watch episode of Hijacking Reality number 4. You see how it's all connected. So, so let me just add one more before I get really deep with it. So, okay, just to add to this, who owns this but the Blackstone Group? When did Blackstone Group get this? They inherited it in 007, May 2007. They purchased the Tussauds Group. Tussauds Group owned it. So now Blackstone Group owns this. Now, granted, this is after the BBC episode, but before the London Games. And so who's Blackstone Group? Well, Blackstone Group, you know, here's an article about 9/11, you know, who are the financial actors behind the purchase of the World Trade Center. Ding, 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 the Blackstone Group. It's the private investment bank. They're the ones that made it happen. In addition to real estate activities, the Blackstone Group's core businesses include mergers and acquisitions and so forth. The Blackstone chairman, Pete Peterson, is also the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and chairman of the board of the Council on Foreign Relations. All friggin' Rockefeller. It's all the same sort of shit. And they're the ones who own it. So, okay, now it's going to get even weird. If that wasn't weird, if you're not like right now saying like, what am I listening to? What sort of like friggin' golden eye, Pierce Morgan, like this guy is the most divisive man. He is the one-man clickbait machine. He is, you know, which man is he? I don't know. Is he GoldenEye? I don't know. This stuff just lines up. I mean, this looks too much like the Norway Spiral to me. Which happened in 2009, but nonetheless, wait till you see this. All right. So, the London Ferris wheel. That's what we're talking right here. The London Eye. The circumference of the wheel is 1,392 feet. All right. And this is the moon. Here's our moon right here. The moon is 6,786 miles. And so you're like, all right, we need to get these. I'm going to look at this relationship to one another. So this is feet. This is miles. There are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So if we want to get this into feet, we have to multiply these two numbers. This is basic math. So this is what we have right here. 6,786 times 5,280. And then that gives us total number of feet. And then we divide it by 1392. So that's a 1392. And here is the answer. 25,740. So what this means is this has a harmonic resonance. It resonates with the moon by this number. So we see it's a perfect, like it's a whole number. There's no zero, there's no decimal points. It's a perfect whole number, and it resonates like that. And we know right here, where do we see this? We know that right here that these folks at so limited, distilled 24 hours into 24 minutes. That's a harmonic resonance. We're looking for harmonics, we're looking to see, the harmonics between the moon and the Ferris wheel, or we see that there's a harmonic between the moon and the Ferris wheel. It's 25,740, whatever that may be, but that's where it's resonating. So then, what is it? It's the axial procession. In astronomy, the axial procession is gravity-induced, whatever, flat Earth, circular Earth, concave Earth, sphere Earth, I don't know. But we're reflecting back to the mathematics of the world we live in. So just focus on that for right now. In astronomy, the axial procession is gravity-induced, slow and continuous change in the orientation of the astronomical body, blah, blah, blah. In particular, it can refer to the gradual shift of the orientation of the Earth's axis of rotation in a cycle of approximately 25,772 years. Look right here, 25,740. These are basically the same. These are like 99.99% the same. This is harmonic resonance. But if we really want to see how perfect this is, let's talk about the eye. There are 32 capsules. That's what goes around on this thing. This are capsules. There are 32 of them. There are 32 capsules that are representative of the 32 boroughs. Remember, when Queen Elizabeth was given the gift from the victim of the Virginia Tech shooting, it had 32 gems on it. When you add 32 to this becomes 25,772. Exactly the same. What is axial procession all about? Axial procession is the explanation behind the precession of the equinoxes, the changing of the ages. Remember everything which we talked about before about the age of Aquarius and the age of Pisces. The reason why we have that change is because of the axial precession. So we see right here that this spinning Ferris wheel in the middle of where's our spinning Ferris wheel? Here's our spinning Ferris wheel, which has some sort of friggin' algorithm connected to everyone tweeting in the midst of this London event is in harmony with the moon, whatever the moon is. You want to go and take your David Icke sort of Saturn moon matrix, go right ahead. I don't know nothing right now, but I know that this is what the numbers are telling us. They all add up and it's all connected. And I'm going to show you one last thing and then we got to be done with it because it's too much. So look right here. London Eye, it celebrates its 20th birthday. When did it celebrate its 20th birthday? March of 2020. What happened on March 26th of 2020? There was a worldwide rewatching of the Rose episode of Doctor Who, the one we're talking about. When did that happen? Just as the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson tests positive with coronavirus. We talked about in the previous one. All of that lines up to everything else. All this shit's fucking lined up and harmonized perfectly in this Golden Eye, Piers Morgan, Doctor Who, World Health Organization, Bill Gates, get your thing, get your shot. So let me come to the conclusion right now. So this is it. What is all this about? When you go and you look at this, what is this all about? They're calling us in to fight. The little bit of research I saw on the Doctor Who, it had to do with the amount of violence and how it introduced violence, and it was so much what we can see from what the BSC did was to bring America into a war. We know that it has to do with wireless technology. There's synchronicity, coincidence, whatever. It is this magnetism. It's like, it doesn't matter like what level it hits you at. You know, are we conscious of it because, you know, we can decode it? Well, we're just watching it. We're still like, we're putting our energy into it. We're putting our energy into it. We want to see more and more. That's why I'm like, you know, I'm as guilty of it. You know, I'm telling you this so that we can look away. So that we can look away. None of it's real. It's all coming from the TV. These wars, they're not real. This technology is not real. We need to go back to what is real. Like if we don't, we're just going to get pulled in, and we can see where they're pulling us in. Okay. What is real? Human beings are real. What does it mean to be a human being? You know, we have been on an onslaught from these guys since 1940 at least. Every generation, you know, all of us have been, we've all grown up in this. We've all adapted, as all human beings do. What do human beings do is we adapt to what we grow up in. And we've adapted to this multi-generational, collection of web, which is just bringing us to this point right now. And what is this point where we are to step into like the full web, the internet, all of that. And so it's like, we can see it right now. Now is our opportunity. I don't want to do any more of these like, you know, the following the bouncing ball anymore. Maybe I'll still make some more videos because I love it. I like to talk to people. I like to teach. You know, that's what I do. But I want to teach how to look away and then go back to the real, and to identify where all of the wounding that's happened, wounding to each one of us, wounding to the earth, an understanding of the relationship, and an understanding how to navigate it. So, you know, that's where I want to leave it right now. If you stuck around for this long, I appreciate it. You know, I'll give a little bit of commercial. I'm updating. What I want to do more now is really work with people. You know, I like to do this stuff for free. As long as we got to do money, like money's part of the system, and like I want to get off money as soon as we can. I would do my services away for free, but if not, you can go and pay for some of my services right now on my website. I want to work with folks. I can do the same thing to your story. I look at your astrology. I show you why astrology is bullshit, but I also show you why there's a truth to it. I want to talk a little bit more about the relationship we do have with the heavens, whatever the heavens may be. I don't know what they are, but I do know that we're with inside them. And I want to help people understand that. I want to help people understand from their breaking out of the imprisonment which we have been born into, both within our families, within our cultures, and all that sort of stuff. So check out my website. You know, pass it on to anyone else who you think could benefit from it. I appreciate all you folks for watching it. I read all the comments. I don't respond to them just because I don't want to get sucked into them, but I often want to. I respond in my mind. Begin to develop the real internet, the real things, trees, plants, rivers, you know, figure out how that works. Art, be creative, be human, be strong, be compassionate, be understanding, be fun, be childlike, be wise, be all that sort of stuff. So it's with that, my friends, I bid you adieu. Good night.